Well, it took 2 videos and 12 pistons, but our small block Chevy for our 56 Bel Air is finally done. In our last video, we got the rest of the bottom end assembled, cylinder heads, intake, everything else is on. We primed the oiling system as well as priming the engine itself. And in today's video, we're going to lay a nice coat of Chevy red on this and put all of the accessories on. So let's get started. Okay, so for paint, I decided to go with POR-15 engine enamel, of course in the Chevy red. I typically only like to paint engines black, but I want to try and keep this one looking as original as possible, so we decided to go with that. This color is difficult to find in an aerosol can in the store, so that prompted the purchase of this high-volume, low-pressure sprayer off of Amazon. Because I really didn't want to brush this stuff on. There are a lot of crevices on a fully assembled engine, so we're going to go with the brush on, but we're actually going to spray it. I purchased this gun off of Amazon. I think it was $55, and one of the main reasons that I chose that one was it comes with a DIN cup. I believe it's a number 4. And the purpose of this is to measure the viscosity of whatever enamel that you're spraying. And from what I've read, getting the ratio correct is pretty key to having success with one of these sprayers. I'm going to go ahead and turn this around, and we'll measure the viscosity on the paint, and then we'll start playing around with the solvent mixture, and we'll do a quick spray with the gun, and if all looks well, we can start painting. So before we take our measurement, I'm just going to go ahead and stir this up. It says like 4 times on this label to stir it, not shake it. So I was really tempted to shake it, but I figure I'll follow the instructions for once in my life. Stuff's like ice cream. I should also note it says that this should be applied between like 50 and 70 degrees Fahrenheit. It's like 51 degrees, so it's going to make things a little interesting, but be all right. So you notice I have my phone set up, and you're going to measure the time it takes a full cup of this to empty out. It could take 30 seconds. It could take a minute and a half. It's probably going to be on the longer side, judging by how thick this stuff is. But we'll see how long it takes, and then we will start adding in our solvent from there until we get, it says between 20 and 40 seconds is the required measurement. At least that's what it says in the book for the sprayer. So to speed this up, I poured the POR-15 in the mixing cup. I got about 13 ounces in there out of the 16-ounce can, so I figure I had a little bit of a loss just because of how thick the stuff was. So I'm going to dip the cup. We'll fill that up. We'll time that, and then we'll see if we need to add any more solvent to this. All right, so we're over the 40-second mark, so still a little too thick. Let's put the cup off to the side. Splash this with a little bit more solvent, and we'll try again. Unfortunately, at least from what I was able to find, there's not really a very good chart or guide or anything like that on the ratio of how to mix this, so it's kind of trial and error. Okay, so we're going to go ahead, pour that in. Let's get started. So with the engine finally painted, I've broken down my no expense spared paint booth. We're going to start getting some accessories on this thing and make it look a little bit more like a motor. And I think we're going to start with the fuel pump. Next piece going in is going to be our fuel pump. I've turned the motor over to where the cam lobe will allow the fuel pump push rod to actually go up as far as it can, just to give us more room to get the fuel pump on behind that bracket. With a little bit of assembly lube on the tip of that. A little oil on the push rod. And we'll go ahead and slide that up and in. Put that on, I'm going to go ahead and put our plate back on. Now we can go ahead and position the fuel pump. Went ahead and pounded new freeze-out plugs in. I have the water pump pulley on there just for belt alignment at this point. The next thing I want to do is get the harmonic balancer and the crank pulley on. So because the earlier cranks are not threaded, this is strictly a press-on. So I threw a coat of paint on the balancer and the pulley. I have that sitting on the heater right now in hopes that it'll help that balancer just expand a tiny bit, and that I can get it slid on by hand a decent amount, because if not, it gets basically hammered on, and I really don't want to beat on the thrust bearing on the crank that much. So I'm going to grab some gloves or whatever I could find, and we're going to try and slide that on, get that lined up with the water pump pulley. In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. All right, threw some fresh plugs in. If you guys have been following this build, the first video on this engine, I actually gapped those spark plugs and was preparing to put them in because I thought that was going to run. I thought I was going to need plugs, cap rotor, points condenser, and we'd have a running car. And you see how that went. But plugs are in. I'm going to set this up on the tripod. We'll jam the distributor in. I did set the engine to top dead center and then gave it just about 10 to 12 degrees of timing, just to help us out when we go to start this thing. So yeah, get the distributor, put that in. We can start running the spark plug wires, and then I think we can put our manifolds on. Okay, using the priming tool, we're going to spin the oil pump drive shaft to roughly the 10 o'clock position, and hopefully with that in that spot, we'll be able to drop our distributor in and have the rotor pointing close enough to cylinder 1. Okay. So the rotor is basically pointing right to 12 o'clock on the engine. I'm okay with that because it'll be easy enough to remember, and it's not like it's pointing on the opposite side. So that's good. I'm going to throw the hold down just so we don't move that too much. Okay. All right, next we can grab the cap, clamp that down, and we can start routing our plug wires. Got to remember to grab a new cap because this thing has seen better days. All right, plugs and wires are done. The block, I'm assuming these are factory, had little tabs to route them basically underneath the exhaust manifolds. I'm assuming there were rubber bushings in there that are long since gone. So I just wrapped a little bit of electrical tape around them so they would fit in there nice and snug, but everything is tucked up and out of the way, so we can move on to the exhaust manifold. Rest of these, and I cleaned them up pretty well, but there's still a nice layer of surface rust on there. So this is a bucket of POR-15's like evapor rust or something along those lines. So we're going to dip these in here and we'll let them sit overnight. And once they're cleaned up, we're going to hit them with some manifold gray paint and we can throw them on the engine. Okay, manifolds are out of the rust dissolver. Rinsed them off, dried them off. I'm going to hit them with POR-15 manifold gray, and then I'm going to hang them above the heater for, I think it said 4 hours. It has to cure at around 400 degrees, so hopefully that's enough. We are done. Engine is all back together. Everything's been cleaned, painted, reassembled. I do think I'm going to put an alternator on this rather than going with the factory generator. So I just picked up this alternator bracket today. And I have the long sweeping arm for the adjustment as well. But the 2-barrel Rochester has been rebuilt. Air cleaner is back on. That's been cleaned out. We have a motor. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. Next video is either going to be putting this motor in the car and hopefully getting it started, or starting the metal repair on the car itself, which I've already started filming, so not sure which one is going to be next. But if you did enjoy this and you like the car itself, please consider subscribing, and we'll catch you in the next one.